Hey everyone. In this episode of In Conversation, in partnership with the 2024 Dubai ITS World Congress, I'm joined by the CEO of Intelligent Transport Systems UK, Max Sugarman. Anyway, I'm Alistair and this is at ITS Now. A large proportion of highway authorities in the UK have suffered from a real lack of budgets to undertake even their core roles for the upkeep of their highways. So we've seen lots of news about potholes and all of these sorts of problems. But do you think in some ways we're being unrealistic to expect a dramatic overhaul of ITS infrastructure, particularly to support connected vehicles? Over the next couple of decades, it's going to be a difficult situation for many of these authorities to actually be able to afford anything like this.
Oh, 100%. I don't underestimate the size of the challenge here. And also, ITS competing with social services, with a whole range of other factors. I mean, that is the same at national level as transport. We're all competing in a tough fiscal climate. So I don't underestimate that. On the local authorities area, one of the things that really came out when we were putting this manifesto together was some of the decisions that local authorities make are set more by whether they have capital expenditure to use or operational expenditure. And sometimes the decisions aren't the most cost-effective decisions, but they're there because capital expenditure is easy to get and operational expenditure is hard to justify. Whereas even if something had a higher OPEX, sometimes it delivers even more value or is more cost-effective in the long run. And we put an example in the manifesto around temporary traffic management that came up from some of our members. So really it's about using some of that money better, I think, and working with government to understand how local authorities can make decisions that aren't sort of the cheaper today but more costly in the long term, but actually provide real benefits over a longer period of time. And I think that's there's a lot of issues here. Certainty and sustainability of local authority funding is important, but I think actually we could probably reduce costs for local authorities in the sector if we had a better way of working in terms of OPEX and CAPEX.
Yeah, well, this is something that's increasingly coming up with my clients. And actually, I think with a move in the way that technologies are deployed now, there's going to be a lot more features implemented as SaaS, software as a service type implementations, where it's basically data on the cloud and any upfront costs will be met by that contractor or supplier, and clients will just get it on a monthly rental, so it'll be an OPEX budget stream that it's coming from, and I think we're going to see more and more of that. So the way in which authorities are financed is going to become quite critical, I think.
100%. Other sectors are already taking advantage of SaaS, and a lot of the different sectors in the economy use SaaS quite often. It's now sort of quite an established model, but there seems to be some barriers, I think, across the public sector, actually. Maybe it's not just an issue for transport around it, because there's questions about ownership of data, things like that. Understandable, and I'm not sort of each issue will have its own nuances, each specific example. But I do think as a sector, we need to move to using those tools far better and far more.
Yeah. This now produces learning resources about ITS, which are often used by new entrants into the ITS sector. It would therefore be interesting to learn a little about your career background and how you've become a leading ITS professional.
Sure, Alistair. Well, although I, as you kind of say, might be a leading ITS professional, my background isn't actually in ITS. So I came from the rail industry. I worked at an organisation called the Railway Industry Association, which was a similar style membership body for rail supply chain. And then I was there leading their public affairs and PR, doing their comms and engaging with government on behalf of the rail supply sector. And I also went to the Catapult Network. I worked for the Catapult Network, looking at what they do in terms of key innovation centres around the UK. So although I'm not an ITS professional, I think particularly those two roles really helped highlight to me the importance, of an effective transport system and how we get that right, and particularly for the railways, things that are particularly pertinent right now, the use of data, AI, things like digital signalling have applications in the ITS industry. And the second thing I think, particularly with the Catapult Network, was a real understanding of how we sort of spur innovation in the UK and why it's so important that we continue looking at innovation. And dare I say, although ITS is a highly innovative sector, it's not always the case that our transport network benefits from all the innovations that are out there.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. You know, there's a lot of people in transport and mobility that don't realise they're actually working in ITS, and to some extent, vice versa as well. So it's getting that recognition and interaction between different parts of the sector, I think, is vitally important.
I agree, and you know, it's interesting because I often come across the question from members and others around what is ITS, what's the scope, what's it cover, and it's an important question. I think my view is transport technology should be seen as broad as we can make it, and actually, you know, there's a huge amount of applications and transference across different modes of transport, different technologies in different areas. So we should embrace that, because actually, you know, it's a fantastic thing that we can you know, find different solutions across transport. But it's a question I often get asked of where does ITS start and stop, and it's not always the easiest question to answer.
No, I totally agree. But for any of our viewers, we have got a video describing what I think ITS is, so have a look at that. I'll put a link in somewhere for you as well. And also, I think so many people like yourself, even myself, have ended up in ITS without actually planning to get there. So I think that's why your organisation's role is really important, to try and promote the visibility of the sector as well, more broadly.
Yeah, and you know, we all know there's a skills challenge out there about getting people with sort of STEM backgrounds into the sector, and you know, I again, it's something we talk to members a lot about. How do we fulfill the roles that they need in this sector, and whether, you know, we should be working to promote ITS as a good sector to be in, which is, as I'm sure you would agree, Alistair, it's a fantastic sector. Even if you fall into it, it's something brilliant that once you're in, you realise how brilliant it is. So, you know, there is a lot of work to do on that, and you know, we are competing globally and with other sectors as well for those skills, and yeah, it's not easy to do.
Yeah, I spoke recently. Well, I was chairing sessions, as you were, at Traffic's conference recently, and one of the topic areas we were speaking about was that very issue about skills shortages, albeit in the highway sector. It's quite a general topic, but it certainly affects ITS and all the subsets of work that goes on within that. So yeah, I think it's something that's really important.
Remember to hit subscribe for ITS now.
So another aspect that is affecting everything is also the requirement to reach net zero in the next couple of decades. Are there any particular areas that ITS can make major contributions to decarbonising mobility?
Well, I think there's a few areas here. I think you know, probably traffic management and more effective traffic management and smarter traffic management doesn't get to look in the same way in terms of how much it could reduce carbon. But there are some fantastic examples out there of how reducing congestion on the road network can save a huge amount of carbon dioxide from being emitted. So I think that's really essential. I'm really excited about the intelligent traffic management fund that DfT are running through the Transport Technology Forum, because I think it's a really good example to show some of those, and I know that there's plans for kind of beacon sites that show what they can do in terms of a whole range of innovation in the sector. So that's really, really exciting. I think also, just in terms of that integration piece, we should be also trying to get people out of their private car into public transport. But fundamentally, for a lot of people, that won't happen until they feel that public transport is reliable enough and accessible enough and understandable enough to say, I can leave my car. It's a more comfortable journey to do that, and that requires things like NAS. It requires better journey planning. It requires a huge amount of technology to make sure that that journey is seamless and effective, and something that the member of the public wants to repeat and use regularly. So that is going to be a big part of decarbonisation. But again, it's possibly not something we talk enough about.
Yeah, I think safety, security, ease of use are things that don't always spring to mind when we talk about public transport at the moment, and certainly areas differ dramatically. I live in the countryside, so here we have a very poor public transport service, but it is possible to get about, but only if you want to be home by 7 in the evening. But yeah, those are critical factors, so it's something that we're going to have to do more about. So there are features, like you say, with traffic management, so the systems behind the way that control vehicle movements. Transport for London have just switched on a new urban traffic control system, and that's going to be developing further with more features to make the overall operation slicker. So I think there is a lot happening, but yeah, it's going to be a slow path, I think, but
100%. And actually, you've mentioned something which is really important there, which is rural transport is going to be probably the hardest to decarbonise in some ways. Also on the EV front, it's going to be EV charging infrastructure is going to be good from the seeing the main kind of arteries and the main cities outwards. Yeah, it is going to be a real challenge. I mean, that's why actually we really wanted to go strongly in on things like demand responsive transport, which are solutions out there. I think it's going to be quite a big challenge in particular for rural areas, and we need to bring those rural areas with us. They can't feel like it's being sort of something being imposed on them that forces them to change their habits. They've got to come with us and accept it.
Yeah, definitely. So we've also seen a change in the hierarchy of users for the road network in the UK. So that's promoting walking and cycling along with using public transport over the use of private vehicles. What do you think are the key ITS enablers to support this?
Yeah, so I think there's it's really interesting about the hierarchy of users, because I think we've had some more of a discussion over recent years. I mean, Plan for Drivers actually maybe slightly questioned what the hierarchy of users was. So I dare say it's possibly not a set in stone as it once was. But 100%, we need to encourage more active travel. I think really that is ultimately about providing people with, the options that they can use and accessible options. That's around support for active travel England, and also in terms of all nations and regions having support and funding they need to put in improvements. But it's also really, around optimization of routes, using things like traffic management to make it sort of more easy to get around a city centre or a particular region. I'm also a big fan of shared micromobility schemes, and I think that they have a place. I think there's I know they can be controversial for some people around sort of where things like shared bikes are stored and things like that. But fundamentally, if it's getting more people out and about and they're using them safely, which we should be encouraging, then that's fantastic, and that should only be supported. Really. So there is a lot more we can do on the active traveller front, I think getting support for some of the active travel schemes around the country is really important.
Yeah, so we see that we've got finite capacity in many of our cities, in the streets for different users. So a lot of that is now being reapportioned to active transport modes and public transport, etc. I think one area where artificial intelligence will play a key role is how our existing traffic management systems, our urban traffic control systems, have got huge arrays of vehicle detection capabilities around our cities, and they track the flow of vehicles citywide. But what we don't do is anything similar for pedestrians or cyclists. So I think AI will be a key enabler to provide that enhanced level of management, to actually understand that loads of people are just coming out of the train station, a couple of trains have just arrived, or the football's just kicked out, or it's busy in the shopping mall at the weekend, or whatever the attractor is, that we can do more about it, rather than somebody's just pressed a button and asking to cross the road. All in that situation is that there's a person. You don't know how many people are there. So doing more with this data is going to become more and more important.
Oh, and I've seen fantastic things in terms of, a better understanding through machine learning and AI, or in terms of understanding the use of the infrastructure. I would say, also we have a member who I'm sure you know as well, who always says, a connected vehicle doesn't have to be a car, and actually the data we can get from bikes and lots of other different types of vehicles around the road network would be really important.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to go, but what we need to do is not forget about these features that haven't traditionally been part of the industry's scope of work, but will become more and more important. And now is the time that we should be thinking more about that. You mentioned about the election. So as we're filming, we're in the period before the election, so everybody's busy, and so have you. You've released a manifesto, but slightly different to the political parties in that it's for the sector. But I wondered, if you could give a brief sort of highlights of what you think the next government in the UK should be concentrating on.
Sure, yeah. So we released our manifesto about a week and a bit ago, and setting out what we believe the sector requires to grow and flourish, and also to benefits for technology for the transport network. And it's split into kind of 4 key areas, which is connectivity and autonomy. So looking at how we can utilize data better, and a lot of that is around what you mentioned around how can we use things like connected vehicle data, how can transport authorities and local authorities have the capabilities to use those, which come into, again, things like skills, but also around funding and finance. It comes into the automated vehicles opportunity, and what we do now, we've got the kind of legislative framework, how we make the benefits of that, and make use of that act to kind of grow an industry in the UK. And then the second section is integration. So this covers things like mobility as a service. We're calling for things like a MAS strategy. And for us, I think there's been some fantastic work around the UK by both public and private sector on MAS. But dare I say, sometimes it feels like we aren't giving it sort of a strategic direction that it requires. And so actually understanding what the government wants in a MAS strategy would be really important. And we also look at that in terms of e-scooters and e-scooter legislation, which the sector's still been waiting for in integration. And we also look at smart ticketing as well, and how we can roll out smart ticketing in more places across the UK, given that that is not just an enabler of MAS, but central to an integrated network. Sustainability in society is the third section. That covers road safety and transport safety. There's a huge amount to do there. Rolling out technology across the road network will keep people safe. We talk about the importance of enforcement technology there, and getting things like the Home Office type approval process right for the approval of enforcement tech. We talk a bit about DRT there, demand responsive transport, and how we can move to more on-demand bus systems, and the issues around VAT and regulations there that need to be sorted. We look at a whole range of different parts of that as well. And then finally, we look at industry growth, and the recommendations there are really around how we grow the industry in the UK through a better procurement that understands technology and kind of data services. And then finally, also the kind of international aspect of that, which is how do we export abroad. So that's a really key thing. And with obviously the World Congress coming to Birmingham in 2027, it's a really good time frame for us to grow exports, for us to promote the UK industry abroad. I realise there's one recommendation I missed out: sustainability in society, which is road user charging, which is quite a big one to miss out, but that's obviously a key issue for our members as well. We're going to need a shift to mobility pricing, a national scheme that is able to meet that hole in kind of the revenue and the tax intake that's coming from EVs. So we need to be able to deal with that. We need to have a sensible conversation about it.
Remember to hit subscribe for ITS now.
We talked a little bit earlier about how the ITS sector works, but I think there are a lot of people who are working in tech startups and sort of mobility companies that aren't really aware that they're in the ITS sector. How can we be more proactive to reach out to these sort of outliers so that we get a more cohesive sort of operating and just innovation across the whole sector?
Yeah, so I see that as a big part of my job, actually, in terms of our work here at ITS UK. It's partly to work with our members and support the sector, but it's also to bring those in who are actually working around the sector, as you say, might not think of themselves as in ITS. And we've got a really broad range of members, and I think that adds to the discussion. In some ways, the mobile operators and those around digital connectivity, those providing cloud services for the transport as well, those who are providing technology and planning software for buses and for active travel and various other things that we've mentioned today. Those are all part of the ITS sector, and that's why I'm really keen that we are outreaching and going out to them and talking about the issues that they care about, and working with them and making them feel part of the community. Because I think ITS, as I've said, at its best is when it covers all modes, is looking at all the different applications of technology across the transport network. And so it's something that's really important to me, and I think something a role that we're working hard to play at.
Yes, yeah. Now, we talked a little bit about the election, but we've seen how technology, which has been used to increase capacity and capability within the mobility sector, has to some extent suffered a bit of a backlash, and that's due to poor public perception of a few initiatives, such as low traffic neighbourhoods. It sort of touched on that, smart motorways, and also the ULEZ extension in London, where we even saw people cutting poles down and cameras, etc. So how can we respond to this to ensure that the long-term viability of ITS initiatives and technology deployments, which are there to benefit users' aspirations for mobility, aren't negatively impacted like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, to take some of those the points that you mentioned, I mean, the Smart Motorway Programme, we've now seen in April 23 the government halt that programme, and it's continuing obviously with the smart motorways that are in place, but was not delivering any further schemes. I think, as an industry, we possibly didn't communicate the benefits of smart motorways as effectively as possible. And I think there's been a lot of discussions around how we do that better. Ultimately, they are some of the safest roads, well, in Europe, and actually, by a lot of different factors, incredibly safe in terms of major roads and on the strategic road network. So, there was an issue around that, around communicating that, and we didn't quite do it. And I think that's actually a bit of a lesson for a whole range of different other areas that we really, as a sector, need to get to grips with user experience, with understanding how the technology is perceived from outside. I think the public generally, not just in transport, are talking a lot more about technology and AI, but they're also increasingly aware of things like privacy and a whole range of different issues around where technology can go wrong. So we need to be showing that we've thought about those issues and bringing the public with us. And on things like ULEZ and clean air zones, yes, there's been political controversy. I think we need to have a sensible, grown-up discussion around a national mobility pricing scheme. The Transport Select Committee a few years ago published a report saying it needed to be looked at. Fundamentally, if you talk to politicians and talk to policymakers like we often do, they know it's coming. They can see the revenue hole that's emerging. But we're not having a sensible conversation with the public about it, and it's in some cases we're seeing it being used a bit like a political football. And I just think that actually we need to get on top of this. We need to set out a plan of what we would do. And the technology is there. I mean, as I'm sure you know, Alistair, if we wanted to do it, we'd have a whole different suite of technology that could implement this. It's not about that. It's more about getting the public acceptance and understandably also making sure that it's fair and equitable and people understand why it needs to happen, that actually that money is going to a hospital down the road. It's not just government trying to come in and take more money. It's actually going to help and support you and improving things like public transport alongside it, so people feel like they have a mix of alternatives for transport. I don't think we're having that sensible conversation yet about it. I hope we do, and it's something that we are pushing for, but we'll have to watch the space.
Yeah, I think it's about trust and communication, like you say. But communication really is key to be proactive, actually putting messaging out before features are implemented so people know what to expect when they arrive and clearly understand the benefits or disbenefits of why things are being done. It's really important. Okay, so in the ITS sector, we've got probably an aging demographic in many areas for people working in this sector. How can we make it more attractive to young people and increase also the ethnic, cultural and gender diversity of those working in the sector?
Yeah, so I think there's a whole range of initiatives that are going on in the industry. For our part, one of the big things that we do is we have an early careers forum, which is for those in the first 5 years of the industry, to make them feel like they've got a home and somewhere to get started in the sector. And it is really important. We get a lot of, mostly young people, but you can be at any age in the first 5 years of being in the sector, but mostly young people coming in and wanting to meet one another, feel like they're part of a cohort that can, develop through the sector. And I think that is really crucial because, I think having that feeling of being part of something is vital to staying in the sector and developing yourself. And there are a lot of other things, and particularly looking at before people get into the sector, how we can encourage them. And I know there's a whole range of different initiatives that are going on around engineering, and we support a lot of those. It's key that we talk about the benefits and excitement, and what you can do and how exciting it is day to day to work in this industry. I mean, fundamentally, there is nothing more interesting from my point of view of understanding how you get people around and how you do that effectively and how you deliver that in a low carbon way. Obviously, the environment's hugely important to young people, so we really need to be going out and really singing about what the benefits of the sector is. And on the kind of ED&I side as well, again, a really crucial part of this, because fundamentally, we need to reflect the public we serve, and we need to also, be very welcoming and opening. And again, we've got a Women in ITS group that actually not only does it look at women and how we can support them in the sector, but increasingly it's looking at other areas of ED&I as well. But again, we do events to support women in the sector and to give them a place to talk about their experiences of working in the industry. We have an event coming up on International Women in Engineering Day, where we're getting people together to talk about some of the diversity programs going on in the industry. And again, we need to be showing that this is a really welcoming sector. I have to say, talking to our members, they are fully behind trying to get a more diverse demographic into the industry, and also to get young people in the industry. And so, transport generally, I think, again, putting ITS aside, transport doesn't always have the best message or the best. Hasn't always been perceived as the best place to be, but actually it's a fantastic sector and an incredibly welcoming industry as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also the opportunities that the sector presents are more or less unlimited. You can literally work all over the world once you're practicing in the sector. There's these requirements everywhere. So working with companies either UK based or abroad as well, that there are real career opportunities and opportunities to have learning outcomes of what's being done abroad and bring them back here as well. So a lot to do and a lot of exciting things.
I completely agree. In fact, one of the things that I was really moving into this role about 2 years ago now, I was so impressed by was just the international reach of the ITS sector. So we have our 35 partner organisations that we have MOUs with around the world, ITS in certain country. But actually, how you can work all around the world and how valued also British expertise are around the world. So, the opportunities there for it to go and work in whole range of different parts of the globe. It's really exciting.
And so circling into that again, at the World Congress, you're going to be doing some bits there as well, aren't you?
Yes, we'll be there. We're part of the UK Pavilion, which we're really excited about. We'll have a little area there, and we're looking to arrange some meetings and do some activity there as well. And aside from all of that, we'll be heavily involved in some of the sessions and getting involved in both what the UK is doing there, some of the events around there, and also the wider Congress. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really good event, and it's not long now, only September.
That's right. So a lot of things to do. Lastly, though, you mentioned earlier 2027, the ITS World Congress is slated to be in Birmingham, England. So I wonder what you feel might be the biggest area of change for ITS in 3 years' time when it comes to the UK.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I mean, the focus of the Birmingham's Congress is kind of ITS for real, and I think it's always quite hard to get out the crystal ball and work out what the future will look like. I think, to come back to some of the stuff we've discussed, I think we will be talking about more around connectivity and autonomy piece. I think we'll be talking more about integration of transport, and I'm really hoping, it's a fantastic opportunity to showcase the UK expertise to the globe. And we've got so much to show here, and there's so many great things going on. I think it'll be really exciting to showcase, and also to showcase, not just the technology, but how we utilize it. Things like user behavior and understanding user experience well. Some of the stuff that we talk about, that actually really demonstrating why it's important, as we talked about with some of the schemes going on around the UK. And finally, again, coming back to what we said about bringing people in who don't traditionally see themselves as ITS, I think that, again, 27 provides a real opportunity to do that. So, it's who knows where we'll be in 27, who knows what technologies we'll have on the transport network, but it's going to be very exciting.
Brilliant. Max, thank you so much for taking part in this. I hope you found that interesting. We've got more episodes of our In Conversation series coming up on the ITS Now channel, official media partner of the 2024 Dubai ITS World Congress. So make sure you don't miss out on any of these insightful episodes we've got lined up for you. So lastly, can I please ask you to subscribe to our channel? It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, but it really does make a huge difference to us, helping to bring more episodes about ITS to you. Thanks again to everyone who has subscribed. Thanks for watching. See you next time.